Welcome to the Sleepy G Show. I'm your host, your most. My name is Gomez, and today, well, as every day when we record on the show, we do have wonderful guests. But this is the first for me. I have to introduce the man, the CEO and the president of Fretbar Records, Jimmy Warren. Jimmy, how are you today?
I'm doing really good, man. Thanks so much for having me. This is really cool of you.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. We've actually been in contact for a little over a couple of months now. I know you're busy. You do have your guitar talk show, your own podcast. You've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
And I have to say thank you for working with me with having Mike and Tony from Theory come on the show. And then also it's kind of funny how like you said, how the world works. You have now Colossal Street Jam with you, and I interviewed Gene prior to he getting signed by you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's small world, man, isn't it?
It's a very small world, and let me tell you,
Yeah.
you have a classy bunch of guys, man. They were honor to talk to, honor to speak with them, and I'll tell you, I felt like I became good friends with them too.
That's cool.
Mike and Tony and Gene. I just actually was just texting Mike and Tony not too long ago, actually about the show on the 19th. I'm going to see if I can head out there for the
Cool.
show. So I'm going to try because I live in Jersey. It's just schedule and work schedule and family schedule is always the hardest for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a great show. The Mercury Lounge is an iconic, amazing venue, to do a
Mhm.
show in. And both of these bands are, they're up and coming. They're emerging. These guys are on the cutting edge of what's going to be hot
Yeah.
down the road in rock and roll. So that's
And let
cool, man.
and let me tell you one thing. Tony, man, the first thing I told him, he reminds me of Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
His voice. When I first when Tag Productions sent me the clip of his song, the hairs on the back of my neck stood. That's how scary good his voice is. And
Yeah.
overall, one of the greatest gentlemen I've ever met. And Mike too, and in theory, man. I can not talk so much highly about those guys and Gene too from Colossal Street Jams. These guys, without a doubt, the funnest interviews I ever had with, and they said the same thing with me, man, and that means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. They're all great people. The bands are amazing. I don't feel like I would be working with them if I didn't think or I didn't feel that these guys are, at the top of their game. These are people that are fans
Mhm.
of rock and roll or rock or hard rock, however you want to word it. These are the bands to keep an eye out, in the future. And that we do work with. I know that you've had these guys, but man, we work with a lot of other bands. We've got
Mhm.
a great female fronted group from Wisconsin called Bourbon House.
I
Man,
just became friends with them not too
yeah,
long ago. So that's another
yeah,
band I was just about to bring up with Bourbon House, actually.
yeah. And then another one that I just signed to a management deal out of Las Vegas called Crashing Wayward.
Okay.
They are on Ron Keel's record label. I mean, Eddie Trunk said that, this is the band to look out for in
Nice.
2024. They are smoking hot. They're more of a modern rock band when it comes to like Soundgarden, Foo Fighters, U2 kind of sound.
Nice.
Really, really good. Peter, the lead vocalist, is, man, he's a ball of friggin' energy. And uh, the one guitar player, I'm drawing a huge blank, and I shouldn't. I was with LA Guns for a good period of time. These
That's
guys
awesome.
have played with like bands like Count 77. I don't know if you're familiar with
I've heard of
Danny
them.
Coker's band.
Not very familiar, but I've heard of the band. Yes.
Great bands though. And now my company is representing Doug Pinnick from King's X, his new project called Grinder Blues. We're
Nice.
also we're also representing Eric Sardinas, who's an
Okay.
amazing blues rocker. We've got the icons of classic rock, which are the vocalists, former vocalists from Foreigner, Boston, AC/DC, Santana, Quiet Riot, and I know I'm missing Survivor.
Wow. Talk about a
Yeah,
lineup right there. Wow.
yeah, Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot going on right now, in the midst of what I do as an artist manager and a
Mm.
booking agent and the label as itself. It's just a really cool time for us.
No, it is, and let me tell you, and I wouldn't say it like I'm very proud to say I had two of your band, two of your bands come on here and very highly talk about you even after the show. And I gotta thank Tag Productions too for actually introducing me to you too.
Hmm.
If it wasn't from Tom from Tag, I would not be sitting here really talking to you and sending the back and forth emails. You know what I mean? You know, uh, like I said, the interviews were so awesome with them, and having you here is like holy. Like I'll even curse this one out. Holy shit for me. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate that.
Because for me, I'm a small guy out of New Jersey.
Mhm.
I am just a little piece of fish in the biggest pond in the NYC metropolitan area. You know what I mean? But to get people like Tony, you, Mike, Gene, some of the New Jersey local celebrities that I've had on my show, it's
Mhm.
like a huge honor for me because I feel like I'm a nobody now. I mean, when this gets released, we'll be in the new year 2024, and it's gonna be my 1 year anniversary coming up.
Oh,
So
thank you.
so the month of January is going to be big. So, you're my first introduction to the new year. You know what I mean? Um,
Well, I appreciate that. And let me give you some encouragement because, when I started Guitar Talk, my
mhm,
podcast, I had 35 listeners the entire first month.
mhm.
And now I'm going into season 5 and we're about 1.7 million in 63 countries.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and all it is, what, if you just be consistent,
Mhm.
right? You're just consistent, just put out great content, have great conversations, and people will pay attention because people enjoy that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, because I know so many guys, man, that get into the podcast game
Mhm.
and they get out, in a short period of time simply because they find it well, nobody tuned in this time, or I only had 300 listeners this time, or whatever. And you just got to plug away. You just got to keep
Yep.
at it and keep
I
at it.
remember. I'll even tell you a little short story. Around August, I was feeling that.
Mhm.
After I put out Gene and everybody, like Gene was a good episode. He was awesome. He was at his house. He was drinking. We were laughing, having a great time. After that episode, I just felt like, oh man, am I pulling? My numbers aren't the greatest. And it was hard. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, am I ever going to make 50 episodes? Am I going to make the 1 year? And someone told me, and it was a good friend of mine, remember, it's a marathon, not a race.
Mm, right,
Pace yourself,
right.
and it will happen. A month later, at the end of September, beginning of October, I got signed by Unfiltered Studios.
Yeah, there you go.
So I was like, holy Christ. And we're growing because now we got I think either our 10th or 11th podcast in this little family group. And
Yeah,
and we're growing every day.
yeah.
And one thing I noticed, my numbers were getting before them, even at that time, my numbers are starting to go up because now, like, I've found some interesting stories. I had somebody who hit rock bottom and drugs and found something that he loves to do. He's coming back for part two in the new year. I found helping um, and supporting autism through an old friend of mine from high
Mhm,
school and her son, and I advocated that very very well. And
mhm.
Gene and Tony, talking to them, I'm using them a lot because we're with
Right.
Fretbar Records here, so I got to make sure I mention them. And talking to you, which is a huge like momentum for me because now um like you said, it's that numbers game. And as I looked at today, I reached 75 YouTube members.
Mhm.
So I surpassed the numbers I really was. I shot for 50 for end of year this year. I'm at 75. And for being a small guy and contending, you know what I mean? As of today, 1,222 downloads in
Yeah,
about six different countries, especially big in the United States, but
right,
Sweden, Italy, you know what I mean? Australia.
right.
It's amazing, like you said. And thank you for the encouragement too,
Yeah.
Jimmy, because to me, for a gentleman like yourself, a CEO, the president of Fretbar Records, the host of Guitar Talk, this is big because this is you don't get a chance to talk to CEOs or the owners of the record companies. And
Right.
this is a
Right.
true delight. These guys always hide behind the doors. You have other people who are the face, but I got the face of the company. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's a
I
pretty
think
face at least.
yeah, I appreciate that. Part of the difference is though is that you know what, that's just a title. And I started out as an artist in the 80s, and I toured with some big names and opened for a lot of big people and had a lot of great, experiences and stuff. But I do this from the place of an artist more than what would be a CEO of a company. Okay, I run a business.
Right.
Band's a business, right? I mean, so I run a business, but at the same time, in that, I found out personally myself that, you know, you got to be accessible to people for one. I think that that's really important.
Mhm.
And number two, I always want to feel like, I'm still an artist, right? I still
Yeah.
have that mentality. I run my business in some ways like I'm an artist. In other words, when I look at a record deal for an artist or a distribution deal or a management deal or whatever, although it's a business
Mhm.
uh, thing that's taken place there, I'm really viewing it more so as how is this going to help them? How can I help keep the artist as independent as I possibly can so that they own their own music, they own their own masters, they
Right.
receive more royalties. They're not getting screwed over by the big guy,
Mhm.
right? Somebody's playing fair with them, somebody's talking to them in a way, that not only is correct. I mean, we're all on the same level, we're all on the same plane in that, but I'm in this probably more so for them
Mhm.
than I am for myself. And I think that's the way it has to be. And so I've always been accessible. You know what, I get at Guitar Talk, I probably get 300 to 500 emails a week,
I can only imagine.
and I answer every one of them,
And
you know.
even me, you know what I mean? Like I'll even say this. When Tag told me to email you, I'm like, dude, I actually go, Tom, that's a CEO and the president of a record company. There's no chance he's gonna. And then when I received it back, I'm like, do I call him Jimmy or do I call him Mr. Warren? How do I, I like to be polite, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
when it's something new, you know what I mean? Like
Right. I get
it,
it.
it's a sign of respect, you know what I mean? And I felt like, hey, you had a lot going on in September and October. You were traveling a little bit, and I totally respected that. So that's why I was like, you know what, I'll wait till the end of December, see if you're available. Because I didn't want to keep bombarding you
Right.
with email and email and email. You have your business, you got your people, you gotta run too.
Right.
And I respect that very highly, but I appreciate you also writing your emails back. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because that's a sign of respect.
Hmm.
And man, to go through I go through maybe 2 or 3 emails a day on my show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for you to go 500 emails a day, 3 to 500, that's a lot. And
Well, it's not a day, it's a week.
oh, okay.
But when you combine that with the label stuff, all the submissions that I get,
Mhm.
and the Facebook messages and the TikTok messages, and you know what, I don't put a lot of stake. My YouTube page is nothing. My
Mhm.
Instagram page is nothing, because that's not where my audience is. That's not where I spend my time. I go on TikTok to give advice
Yeah.
to bands and stuff like that from a manager and a record label standpoint and stuff. But I believe in that, because again, I've been that guy sending out those hundreds of emails trying to get somebody to pay some attention.
Mm.
Respond to me, please. I,
Yeah.
I need a gig. I need a manager. I need an agent.
I
and
need a
never
celebrity. I mean, like you need
I need
something.
something. It's like, and so I feel that it's just the right thing to do,
Mhm.
right? If somebody,
Yeah.
and I might not have an answer, I may not be able to respond the way they want me to respond, but I'm going to respond, you know.
I've been denied before. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I've written, Jimmy, if you saw my fingertips in the beginning of the year and even the middle of the year, trying to find special guests, try to get even a local celebrity, which I have, but even
Mhm.
a celebrity that kind of hit rock bottom. I'm like, well, you gotta pay me. I'm like, dude, I don't have
Yeah.
the money.
Hmm.
This is free. This is what I love to do. He's like, well, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm like, fine. I'm not gonna say be a dick like that, but it's kind of,
Right.
that's a harsh move. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
hey, business is business. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I've done over 500 interviews. I mean, I've interviewed everybody from Morgan Freeman to Steve Vai, and I have never paid anybody. I had one guy ask one time.
Hmm.
I used to work in television, and I was filming filming a sizzle reel for a possible travel show that included music. And so I reached out to this guy. He's kind of in the country-ish world, and
Okay.
he's amazing guitar player, and he was playing at this venue that I was going to be at in Phoenix.
Hmm.
I reached out to him and his wife, and I said, hey, I'd love to interview you for a few minutes, doing a sizzle reel, trying to get a show picked up. I'd really appreciate it. And he wanted like $10,000 to spend like 20 minutes with me. And of course I told him no, because they need, it doesn't matter who it is, how big they are,
Yeah.
and everybody needs the press. Everybody wants to talk to their fans. Everybody
Yeah.
wants, people to know what's going on. And the majority of people in the industry understand that. Now, there are people at the very, very tippy top that are extremely hard to get, even for a guy like me,
Hmm.
but I'm at the place to where I never ask anybody. I haven't had to ask anybody to be on my show in probably the last 3 years, because you build relationships
Yeah.
eventually with all the publicists and all the managers and people and the artists that you come to know and stuff over the years. And then they just start sending you their press releases. And then you say, okay, I'd love to have him on my show.
And that's something I've like with Tag Productions and I say, hey, you could send, hey, Alex, I got someone perfect for you. Here's
Mhm.
his information. Hit him up on an email. Let me know. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that's something I would say, thank you so much. And I dive on the opportunity. Anything that Tag sends me, I try to dive right
Mhm.
on the opportunity. I know they had COVID not too long ago, but
Yeah. That's what I heard.
I email them whenever I can and I see something that I like, I jump on it right away.
Yeah. But you
So
know what? There's something to be said about just not being an asshole,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
There's something to be said about just not being an asshole. If you just treat people, as best as you possibly can, treat people with
Right.
respect, respond to them, treat them like they're important because they are.
Yeah.
I think if you do that, you go much, much farther. Now, there are always going to be people that are, you know, not going to like you or not like what you do or not like what you say and maybe respond in a negative way. That's always going to happen, but it
Yep.
should never stop. It should never stop, like myself, from
Right.
trying to be, as nice as I can. I can tell you this. I sat down one time with uh uh oh, who the heck was it? It was Phil Collins from Def Leppard. I
Okay.
sat down with him one time, and he told me, because we were talking about, what it's like to work with big people,
Hmm.
on a big platform, on
Hmm.
on a national level and stuff. And those guys just want to work with people that are genuinely nice, easy to get along with,
Right.
people that are respectful and kind. And you know what? You'll take a guy like that over somebody who's the most amazing at whatever they do any day of the week in that.
Hmm.
And I try to surround myself, when it comes to the bands that I work with and the people that I work with, I try to surround myself with those types of people, because man, it sure does make the day go by much, much better when
It
you don't
does.
have all the bullshit,
Yeah.
you know?
Like this is like I wouldn't call it my hobby. This is something I love to do.
Yeah.
I love podcasting. I got the itch a couple of years ago. I also was injured. I tore my MCL during COVID,
Mm,
and my best friend of over 30 years, I said to him, "Dude, I'm bored. I need to do something. What can we do? I want to go to podcasting." He came back with the idea of playlist wars. We did playlist wars for about a year and a half, um, almost 2 years. This coming year, last year, um, schedule conflicts. He's got older kids. I got younger kids. So
mm,
8:30 really works better for me. 8:30 doesn't work too well for him. So we took a little hiatus, but he's on his own project. I did my own project. And we're both successful. I mean, he knows more people because he's a music guy too. But for me, as small as I am, I'm thrilled.
mhm.
Like I have fun with this. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't I'm not looking to get paid. I'm looking to have fun. Even the
Right.
guys at my job, like I have a 7 to 5 job every day that I go to. And it's funny, as anybody who has their phones next to them, which I can't see mine because it's all black. I have my phone next to me. If I have a moment to check an email, I check it. If I have a
Mhm,
moment to write an email, I'm gonna write it.
mhm,
Um, it's amazing what I love to do. And for me, is talk
mm,
to you and get to know who you are because this is a show of celebration of that person or raising awareness for that person and that person's family. Like autism, type 2 diabetes, people who've fallen, hit rock bottom and make a comeback. I had two of those. Musical guests, like as yourself, and In Theory, and Colossal Street Jam, and The Sixth. All these bands that I've had. Anybody who's come on, it's been a true honor. The local celebrities in New Jersey, like for me, it's a huge honor. I
mhm,
don't get to go out and hang out with celebrities every day. But you know what? For the hour that I do this for, even if it's 30 minutes, man, it's my time to enjoy it.
mhm,
Just like you enjoy your music, your podcast. And that's something I admire. Anybody who does it and does it for such a long time and do it so well, I admire it. You know what I
mhm.
mean? That's why I was like, I listened to a couple of your shows. Even when I started emailing you, I was like, oh, he's got his own show. Let me see what it's about. You know what I mean? And I started listening to it, and I subscribed to it,
Mhm.
because I listened to the talk, the content, how you do it. And I listen to everybody because maybe I need to change something. Maybe I don't. Maybe someone
Right.
not like, but for me, people ask me, why don't you have music in the beginning? It's not me.
Mhm.
Why do you just shoot from the hip? Because that's me.
Right. Right.
People like improv. People like
Mhm.
the surprise.
Well, it's got to be a genuine conversation.
Yeah.
It's not an interview. That's what I tell people. It's not an interview in that I don't, most, I'd say probably the big majority of people that come on my podcast, I either know them
Hmm.
or I know of them well enough to where I don't do any research on them or anything like that. I
Yeah.
mean, their publicists might send me their new because of course the powers that be, the labels and the managers
Hmm.
and the publicists want you to talk about the tour and the
Oh
album,
yeah.
but most of the time, I don't talk about any of those things. I want to talk about, I want to have a genuine conversation.
Just like what we're doing
This might
tonight.
be the only time we get an opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
And I don't want to interview you. I want to have a genuine conversation with you, however that goes. The first time I met Charlie Daniels and the first
Oh.
conversation I ever had with Charlie
Hmm.
was he went on for 45 minutes just about the Second Amendment for 45 minutes. Charlie talked about the second, and he talked about his love and fascination for Bob Dylan
Hmm.
and how he played on the early Bob Dylan albums and stuff like that. Which I didn't know at that time
Hmm.
because I always, a devil went down to Georgia. He's got a big cowboy hat, plays the fiddle. There we
Yeah.
go. It's
Exactly.
but that I think if you if you stick to something that's just honest and true,
Yeah.
whatever that is, I think that's what people, because I mean, look at Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan, I mean, that's all Joe Rogan's really doing. I mean, Joe
Yeah.
Rogan knows a lot about a lot because evidently, he's paying attention to a lot of
Yeah.
things, but it's just a conversation.
Yeah, just like we're having tonight. And that's what I
Right.
love what we're having because,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, oh, how are you going to talk? Like the guys at work, who I work with, like you're going to have the presidency. What are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. Just going to try to have a good conversation
Yeah.
and respect the gentleman because he's taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk to me, and people are like, dude, have a great show tonight. I'm like, thank you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, but I also got to thank my family too, because they're the ones who pushed me to do it.
Yeah. That's cool.
My wife and my two kids. And, my youngest doesn't understand yet. My oldest is getting it.
Yeah.
Like she goes, oh, that's daddy. That's daddy. And when she sees sometimes on Facebook, she'll see the logo, my logo patch right here, the Sleevey
Yeah.
G, or you see someone hearing, it's kind of funny. I went somewhere like, hey, aren't you the guy from the Sleevey G show? Like, yeah, it's like, oh my God, we got to take a picture with you. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
So for me, that's great, but I'm not all about the glam, you know what I mean? I'm about
Right.
the fun, the
Yeah.
conversations like we're having tonight. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't know what to tell you, but if I had ever had a chance to interview Charlie Daniels at that time, I would probably shit myself because it's Charlie freaking Daniels. So you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or Morgan Freeman, like you said before, like
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman is one of the best actors I've ever seen.
Right.
And the first thing was like, dude, how was it playing with Christian Bale? Like, like,
Yeah.
but those are things like you can be starstruck. I've had one. I got starstruck once. I'm not gonna lie. Bowling for Soup. Rob Felicetti. I couldn't even say his last name right. We did a show with him with Playlist Wars, and I was just like, holy Christ, this is my first like ever, like superstar ever.
Yeah.
Face to face, and I could not pronounce the man's name right. I was nervous. I was scared, and now it's, oh well, if I can't pronounce the last name, I'll just go by first name basis. You know,
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Give
well,
him a nickname.
yeah, or you know what? I want people to feel comfortable.
Mhm.
I had people who were like, I'm nervous. I go, don't be nervous. It's a conversation between you and me.
Mhm.
Let it be. Enjoy.
Yeah, most people at that level in that, I mean, they've been around so long, that they don't want people to feel that way
Hmm.
about them and stuff. And I've, over the years, I've had the opportunity to be around quite a few people, in both music, TV, and movies that, would be considered legends. And one thing that I've discovered about every single one of them is they're just people.
They're humans.
They're just people in that. And I think most of them want to be treated. It's hard for me sometimes because I'll be honest, I am a guy that absolutely loves the guitar. I'm a
Yes.
fanatic for the guitar. I love the guitar. And although our conversations on my show aren't always about the guitar, I love the guitar. And so sometimes when I am in the presence of somebody that I'm blown away by their
Hmm.
playing and stuff like that, I'll be a little bit more reserved
Right.
than that, simply because more so than, one time I had brunch with Paul Stanley and Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys together.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's something you can talk about.
Well,
Wow.
you want to know something? The thing, the
Excuse me.
thing that's crazy about that is, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. I'm not a fan. I'm not a Kiss fan, and I'm not a Beach Boys fan. But I
Okay.
have immense respect for what they both have done in music and in their careers. I mean, they're legends in music,
Hmm.
and they deserve the respect, that they
Yeah.
get. But when I sat down with them, my first thought was like, man, these are real legends. These are like, this is like sitting down, the time that I was able once to be in the presence of Ringo Starr. It's like, these are people that you don't get the opportunity to be around, but
Nah. It just
they're just people.
For me, that would be like legendary to even sit in the same table as Paul Stanley too. You know what I mean? Like for me, like David Grohl is
Yeah.
a gentleman, true, true, awesome musician from drums to guitar to bass. He plays it all. And
Yeah.
for me, that's like, how do you do it? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're in a
But
true,
he's just a guy,
he is.
right? He's just a guy, and he's managed to, acquire the attention and the fame and the popularity and that he has. But at the same time, he's just a guy.
And
Yeah.
he's a guy who's married with kids.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, that's what some of these guys are. And that's
Mhm.
what they and I've interviewed now a few, musicians, and from the very popular ones, not I wouldn't say very popular, but the guys who are up and coming to the guys who are just starting to the bottom, and just to getting to know them and their story is the key. Because people don't realize they when they hear somebody like, I'm just gonna throw Axl Rose. Let's just throw out Axl Rose right there. Guy's a legendary singer from Guns N' Roses and when he stepped in for AC/DC, back to Guns N' Roses and did his own solo stuff. This is a guy you look at and you're like, how the hell did he get his start with Guns N' Roses?
Mhm.
He could have just walked in and like, hey, I just need a pack of smokes, and they thought that he's got the great look. Now can you sing? And he
Mhm.
belts it out. The best movie actually, Rockstar, Mark Wahlberg,
Yeah.
when he tries out for Seal Dragon.
Mhm.
He was a nobody, a printer fixer, and a nobody, and then he becomes a legendary singer. And
Mhm.
he leaves the game because he just knew the fame wasn't for him anymore.
Mhm.
And there's some legends who are like that.
Mhm.
Hey, I'm done with the spotlight. It's time. Let the younger generation come in. But they never put their guitar down or their piano or their drums or their vocals.
Right.
They will always do their side projects.
But as a as a young podcaster yourself, and it doesn't matter which area that you want to have your guests come from, meaning whether it's a cause,
Hmm.
like autism, or whether it's some guest or something like that.
Hmm.
I mean, just all I could tell you is just if you reach out to people, just don't stop,
That's what I'm not
right?
doing.
Because sooner or later somebody's going to go, sure, why not? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Why not? Especially it's like I've told other people that do podcasts, if you're in a certain area of the country and they're coming through that certain area of the country, hell, why not reach out to them and say, hey, I can do a little promotion, have you on the show, and we'll do a little promotion for you right
Yeah.
here.
I mean, and that's the
And you'd be
thing.
surprised how many people might, jump on top of that.
Like I told Tony and Mike, like, listen, try to get you on the show before you go on the stage, or if I can even bring my laptop, I said, listen, I will even interview you during your show. Colossal could go on, you can interview, then Colossal comes on, you guys
Yeah.
are on, you know what I mean? That would be awesome too, I said.
Yeah.
And they like the idea. I said, I just got to see how my schedules would work
Yeah.
because New York and New Jersey are not that far apart, but it's just wife and two kids and job.
Right. No,
That's
I got it.
that's the difficult part. But you know, talking to them like Tony's like 100%. He goes, I did not even feel like an interview.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, we're just like two buddies talking.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the show, we swapped out numbers and we text once in a while. And that's for me, that's the greatest thing. You know what I mean? Just to see, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I have his number on my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that's excitement.
you should hang on to that number, because there's going to come a time, and I'm going to tell you this because you don't know this, but I don't work with In Theory anymore.
No,
They're
I know I
Yeah,
saw
they're
that
not
because
on the label, but I'm a fan. I
yeah,
love the band. I love Mike and Tony. They're great guys. They're a great band. And I know, that someday those guys are going to be, the guys that a lot of people are paying attention to.
their music, their harmonies, everything was
Yeah.
spot on point. And I mean, it's always hard to say goodbye to
Yeah.
guys who you're close with. I can only imagine how difficult that was hard,
Mm.
probably to talk to them and see them go. But when
Yeah.
you look at Colossal Street Jam, Bourbon House, you, you have an extended list of people who you've talked to,
Mhm.
and not mentioning Morgan Freeman again, but I'll do it. But like Paul Stanley, the list can goes on and on for you, and that's something like I look up to because that's where I would love to be.
Mhm.
Would I love 1.6 million viewers to hit me up right now? Yeah, I would love to, but you know what? I got to start somewhere. 75 right
Yeah.
now in a year. I
Mhm.
know I know a lot of people who've done, YouTube under a year, they get maybe 25. My goal
Yeah.
was 50. At the end of 2023, I said 50 subscribers.
Yeah.
I surpassed that in August, which I was
Yeah.
surprised. So,
Yes.
for me, it's the honor of your company tonight, you know what I mean, having you here. And it's funny, we're talking about the stuff, and the one thing I always wanted to ask you is like when you started Fretbar, what made you decide to start it is the question, my one and only question I have, really.
Well, I can tell you that I started Fretbar for the sole purpose of releasing my own music.
Okay.
Uh, during my time as a musician, I was on 3 different record labels. All 3 were crappy deals. I never saw a penny for anything. And my manager, my last manager, was a retired executive from Capitol Records. He knew everybody. He knew the business. I mean, inside and out.
Hmm.
And we made the decision a long time ago. This was back in late '90s, early 2000s, that I was going to start my own label so I could self-release all my stuff. This was around the time, I want to say early 2000s, because this was around the time people were starting to fiddle with that a lot more,
Right.
and starting to consider that.
Mhm.
And so I did that. And so in 2013, I pretty much said, I'm done touring as a musician. I'm still going to play. I'm still going to release music and stuff, but I'm not going to be a full-time musician. And so I decided to start Fretbar just so I had an outlet to release my own music, because I had connections and distribution
Mhm.
that the regular guy doesn't have.
Right.
Right? Most guys are using CD Baby, DistroKid, TuneCore, Songcast, places like that. And I had an actual relationship with an actual distribution company.
Which is a
And
good
so
thing.
I decided, well, if I'm going to release any of my own music, I think it was 2018. I went in the studio. I had Johnny Park, who was the bass player for Slash, and Richie Kotzen,
Yes.
and Michael Leisure, who played drums for Walter Trout and
Hmm.
Edgar Winter and a bunch of other people. And so I went in and recorded this, and that's when I decided, okay, what am I going to do here? And I started with that. And then I had Mike Moseret from In Theory
Yeah.
on Guitar Talk. I was introduced through a mutual friend, because he owns a company called Go Go Pedals. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, he
We
owns Go
talked
Go
about
Pedals,
pedals.
and I love the pedals, so I said we're gonna have him on. And he was also the North American vice president of sales for Sawtooth Guitars. And so I sat down with him and talked with him, and I put on a guitar show, buy sell trade show,
Hmm.
outside of Chicago every year. And I invited him to come to the All-Star Jam I do the night before, and to come to the show, for meet and greets. I had
Hmm.
Jared James Nichols and Chuck Wempler from Blacktop Mojo and Joanna Connor. And so I invited Mike. And after Mike came here and was at the guitar show, and that he called me a while later, and we started this dialogue about his band.
Hmm.
And Mike knows that I know people, right?
Yeah.
And Mike knows that I understand the industry, pretty well. And so I started kind of consulting for the band. That's really what I did for a long time.
Okay.
And we put them on Fretbar so that they had a distribution outlet. They weren't signed to the label. I
Hmm.
just had a distribution deal with them while I was acting as a consultant, helping them to build their fan base and their social media, and stuff like that, help them get connected them to Juan Ibanez, who did their Stain on My Soul video and stuff like that. And it just grew, and the band started to take off. They had music already out there,
Hmm.
and we pulled it, and we decided that we were going to do three singles, and we were going to build on each single, when it comes to promotion and
Right.
publicity and stuff like that. And so they were there. And then the next thing I know, I get a call and say, it was actually from Tom George. And it was like, hey, I got a couple of other bands. I got Colossal, Street Jam, and Bourbon House. These are, check them out.
Hmm.
And I checked them out, and I was like, well, I'm sitting in my office, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm drinking a beer, and I'm sitting in my office, and I'm like, I don't want to go down the label rabbit hole, really. You know what I mean? What can I do to help them? Because I like them.
Yeah.
And then so I signed an agreement to be their managers, and then I signed them to the record label, and now I'm all in.
Right. You're all in, but you got two great bands right there too.
Yeah, well, I actually have quite a few. I manage Bourbon House, Crashing Wayward,
Hmm.
and Colossal Street Jam, and I do the tour booking for Eric Sardinus, Doug Pinnick's band, Grinder Blues, Icons of Rock. I do Nashville Stars Live, and Anthony Cruzan, the guitarist for the Spin Doctors.
Yes.
I do him too. As a matter of fact, he's got a single that's going to release on my label in February.
Oh, nice, nice.
He's really good. He's got some great songs and stuff. So, I'm fortunate to, and I have another young guy in Mississippi. I can't really say it yet, but he's in the Americana roots
Okay.
kind of thing, like a Chris Stapleton kind of guy. And
Ooh,
he's
okay.
really, really good. And I'm really getting into what he's doing and stuff. And so, but now we're at the point to where, okay, we're all in. I don't want to take up all my bandwidth,
Mm,
as a person, because now I've had to go out and I've had to hire people, to work as agents, booking agents, so I don't
right.
have to ship my bands out to another agency. I can try to keep them in house as much
House.
as possible.
And
You know,
that's a good thing too.
well, once again, it goes back to the whole thing about what can I do that's going to benefit the band the most,
Hmm.
but if something comes along, like for instance, the band Crashing Wayward, right now I'm in talks with another agency, a really, really big agency, about them going to them, because in the end, if I'm managing the band, my responsibility is in furthering their career. And if that means going away from Fretbar, if that means going away from us booking them,
Hmm.
if that's what it takes, well, then that's what we're going to do. Because again, this is not about what I do and who I am. It's about them,
Right.
right? I work for them. And that's the way, I tell them all the time. It's like, you have your own business. I'm just the CEO of your business. I'm just the manager of your business. That's it. I'm accountable to you. And so, but yeah, it's just slowly started to
Pick
to
up.
snowball. And yeah, once we started to get some really good momentum, then Doug Pinnick, like I said, from King's X, and Eric
Hmm.
Sardinus, and those types of people, started coming. And I've had other people come to me, and I've had to say no and turn down and that. But there's a lot of bands that will send me submissions trying to get on the label or trying to have me manage them or something like that. And even in those situations, I can't always do it, of course.
Right.
And that, because I have to be passionate about who they are and what they
Hmm.
are. But at the same time, I have to have the bandwidth so that I know that I'm going to be able to, treat them fairly, give them
Right.
the time and the devotion that they need, and not be so bogged down with so many different things. That's the bad thing. If a small band gets on a big booking agency or a big label, sometimes they can just get shelved
Yeah.
because there's too many other big things going on. And it's
You've
not that
seen
they
that
don't want to. Yeah, it happens all the time.
time. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
something you don't want to see. You want to see sometimes the little guy succeed as much as
Right.
the big guy.
Right.
That's the whole point.
And that's why I choose to work. Anybody will tell you, anybody who's been in this business a long time will always tell you, don't work with emerging artists,
Mhm.
right? Takes too much time, too much resources, costs too much money, right? It might take years and years and
To
years,
see,
but there's a part of me that loves that, right?
and that's a
Because
good thing.
I've been that. I
Yeah.
mean, I never made it as a huge, musical artist or anything like that. I was successful in my own eyes. I made money and got to do what I love to do. But, if I can help somebody else achieve that, well, then yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
That is good.
Yeah.
And that's something I love because
But don't get me
that's
wrong, I'd love to have a fog hat or a Blue Oyster Cult or
Yeah,
one of those bands. I'd love to have, especially a legacy band. I'd love to have a legacy band, on my label and that,
yeah,
I love those bands.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like Dave Grohl or anybody, David Hasselhoff. I'll just throw a name out there, just to
David
say
Hasselhoff. There you
that, hey, I was denied by him too. Hey, it's okay. I
go.
get it. He's in Germany a lot. I get it. Time zone's totally different, you
Yeah.
know. But at the end of the day, I just don't end with no.
Yeah.
I do, like you said, the best advice you even said it, and best advice I got is like, don't stop,
Mhm.
because that's
Yeah.
going to be the one day, maybe that 99 email you sent,
Mhm.
even though you're repeating it over and over, they might say, damn, this guy will not give up.
Mhm.
Listen, I for me, if I could ever get a huge name celebrity, it doesn't matter if it's a movie, TV, sitcom, MLB, NHL, MLB, NFL. I would be stoked. It could be
Mhm.
a benched player, and I still be ecstatic because
Right.
it's just showing the respect. Like I actually have, excuse me, I apologize. I have a gentleman, Next Level Customs. He makes custom sneakers for the Philadelphia Phillies and other people. He actually made the custom made Sleevey G shoe.
Wow.
And, I'm a nobody. Shouldn't have my own shoe, but I do. It's the greatest thing ever.
That's cool.
And I'm also a video gamer by trade, by having fun. He made me a PlayStation 5 Sleevey G remote control.
Wow.
Again, I went live on Instagram not too long ago, about a week ago, and I noticed one of the Phillies came on, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to say this in an honor. Bryson Scott is with Inside talking to me and Ryan here on my Instagram, which is the coolest thing ever. You
Yeah.
know, I sent an email saying, hey, I would love to have you on the show. If you can give me a half an hour of your time or an hour, that would be great. Let me know. If you can't, I totally respect you. And, I wish you nothing but the luck during the next upcoming season.
Mhm.
Haven't heard anything yet, but next week I'll type another email.
Right. Yeah. The analogy that I like to use when it comes to this is, the old plow horses with the blinders on,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could only see what was in front of them all the time, so that they
Yeah.
would just make forward progress and they weren't distracted by all the chaos and noise around them. And that's the way it doesn't matter if you're doing a podcast or if you're starting a business or if you're running a race or whatever it is. That's a good a thing to do, is just to always put on those friggin' blinders and just stay focused on what's ahead,
Yeah.
and move on. Because you know what? When I started doing this, even though people know that I know people, and that there was a lot of people that were like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing the podcast? I mean, it's never going to go nowhere. I mean, okay, so you're going to sit in your basement and you're going to talk to a few old legends on guitar. And I'm like, well, I'm cool with that. I
So am
actually,
I.
I actually really like that, but that's not what this is.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what this is. And so, and really what helped me, and it's no big secret, but one of the things that I did that really helped me a lot was I decided that I wanted my market to mostly be Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I invested in ads, in Germany and Netherlands and Sweden and
Mm-hmm.
different places like that. That's how I got an Apple 10 podcast in 9 countries, was
Oh
by
wow.
doing that.
Nice.
I was, this is crazy, but I had the number one podcast in Israel for 2 months
And
for
that's the
music,
greatest.
for music talk. But that's the thing. You know what? It's consistency every day, man. You're at it. You're at
Yeah,
it.
it's funny, like my last special guest I had before you last Friday night. They're like, why don't you do clips? I said, Shh, you know what? Shit, I never thought about doing clips.
Mm-hmm,
And I started this week. I
mm-hmm,
think I put out like 6 clips already on Instagram,
mm-hmm,
Twitter, TikTok. Facebook on my page. And what's funny is that now people are going back on to see some of these episodes.
Mhm.
And I'm going to release probably one with Colossal Street Jam in the next couple of nights, because with Christmas coming, I'm going to have a week off, so I
Mhm.
kind of can work on some of these clips, trim them, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah, those are great. It's I don't personally do that enough, and I
mm,
should, but people probably don't know this. I mean, I have an assistant that helps me sometimes set up interviews, but when it comes to the production, when it comes to the post production,
yeah,
when it comes to any of that, I'm the only one that does that. I don't have a staff of people that do that.
right,
And when I started out, my first couple of years of doing a podcast, I sometimes had 3 and 4 shows a week,
yeah,
you
it's not
know,
easy.
and it's so time consuming. But now for me, in that I've got to the place to where in post production, I've got a template.
Mm,
I take what I need and I drop it in there and put the things in there, and it takes me 15 minutes to actually do the episode. And every time that I've done clips, because I've done clips with Steve Vai and John
yeah.
Five and a handful of people, Warren Haynes and Eric Johnson and some people like that. But every time I've done it, it's always been really successful. But I'm not. I talk about consistency, but here I'm going to admit, when it comes to doing those clips, which are vitally important, I'm not consistent in that because I just
I get it. I mean,
who's got time?
no, it is time, and
Yeah.
that's something, I had to listen to the episode again. I'm like, and then I write down little notes like, okay, at 15:46 we said something funny, and at 15:48 that's where it ended. So
Mhm.
it's like, writing down and looking for the clip again and trimming it down. It does take time.
Mhm.
I mean, that's something, it's new to me, because
Mhm.
I don't edit my shows. I just
Yeah,
this
I
is
don't
why
either.
this is why I love my show. I just go for it. It's the gusto.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
I,
what I
I
mean?
don't edit mine either unless I have somebody say to me, hey, you know what we just said there, I'd like to keep that between you and me. And
Oh yeah,
and
if someone
and I'm
said that
gonna
to
I'm gonna
me,
honor that and I'm gonna do that. But for the most part, yeah, I don't ever edit the shows
if
either.
someone said that to me, I honor that too.
Yeah. I,
That I
I
will
can
honor.
I can tell you one thing that I did that I had a huge, huge response to, and it's something that I should do every time, but I don't. I
Hmm.
did it because it was Mick Mars
Oh my
from
God.
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue.
Right. And so, I'm good friends with his manager. And I mean, they had like 900 people wanting to interview him. And I'm one of a handful really that got that opportunity to spend
Yeah.
a little time with him. And after we were done, I was like, man, that was so cool. That was so much fun. And so what I did was I just took my phone because I'm doing this right now. A lot of people use a camera. I don't. I've got a tablet. I've
I have
got
my
a
laptop.
I've got a tablet I'm doing on. Most of the little clips I do, the intros, and are all done on my phone. So I grabbed my phone and I just said, "Hey, this is Jimmy Warner Guitar Talk." Man, I just had a really cool conversation with Mick Mars. Now it's not going to release until February when his new album comes out, but you got to check this out. And I did like a 30-second clip of it,
Right.
and man, it was the response to it was huge.
Yeah.
You
And that's
know,
something I'm learning to do too.
yeah, and so just by and it's like I think sometimes we feel that the production has to be as best as it possibly can because you see some of this stuff online and whether it's on TikTok or YouTube or wherever it is where some of the production is flat out amazing.
Oh
You
yeah.
know what I mean? You can tell they're not using just their phone or just a tablet. You know that. And
Exactly.
but the stuff that's really raw and in the moment, here you go, man, that's the stuff that draws people in.
And this is where I love what I do, man. And
Mhm.
Jimmy, we're actually coming to the end of the night here for us.
Mhm.
And I gotta say thank you so much for coming on. And thank you for the conversation, man. It's a true
Well,
honor to have you here.
well, I
Um,
appreciate that.
definitely, if you want to come back on, you're always welcome, Jimmy. You're definitely keep in touch with emails, just see how you're doing, see how everything is going. I definitely be keeping in touch. But before we get going for the night, can you let everybody know where they could actually find you?
Well, I hide most of the time in the dark, to be honest with you. But no, they can, you know what? It's fretbarrecords.com
Mhm.
is one place. Guitartalkofficial.com is for the podcast. And JW Artist MGMT, short for management.com. That separates the artist management and booking from the record label.
Awesome.
And
And
then
that,
also, too, if you're a guitar geek and you like to go to guitar shows, you can go to IllinoisGuitarExpo.com. That's my show that takes place in March. And this year, I've got Andy Timmons is
ooh,
going to be there. Doug Pinnick from King's X is going to be there. Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters is going to be there. And Chuck Wempfler from Blacktop Mojo, Steve Scorfina from REO. I think that's it.
and me, I go there. I go for that too. But I definitely go to Chicago for a deep dish pizza. I'll
There
admit
you go.
that.
There
All
you
right,
go.
Jimmy, thank you so much. And I'll have all those links too when I release this.
I know it's a lot.
It is, but you know what? It's awesome because this has just been a truly so real conversation with you.
Cool.
I really appreciate you coming on tonight. And to the guys who are listening to the show or watching the show, dreams do actually happen. And this is another bucket list mark for me. And I hope it continues to get bigger and bigger, which I will not stop knocking on people's doors. I'll tell you next.
Well, it won't take much to get bigger and bigger.
No, that's
To
true.
me.
Well, guys, check out Jimmy, check out his podcast, check out the bands he's got going. Colossal Street Jam, Bourbon House, um,
Crashing
himself,
Wayward.
Christian Wayward, himself. Check everybody out. It's amazing. Also, I'm not gonna forget the guys from In Theory too. That are now,
Yes.
check In Theory out. Great guys too.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jimmy, for coming on.
You
And
bet.
to everybody, good night. And like how I always end my show, it's nothing but love, peace, and happiness, everyone. Good night and thank you.
There you go.